This is a type of album that I love to review, an album that comes out of nowhere for me and really takes me off my feet. So without further ado, let's dive into it. Mannequin from Kyros. So Kyros is a new band for me, as I had mentioned, even though they've been around since the early 2010s. They got their start as a different band name of, I believe it's Synesthesia. I'm glad that they changed their name because it's a little bit easier to pronounce, and apparently there was also a lot of bands in and around that same time around the UK that had that Synesthesia's band moniker, and Kyros is just a lot easier to say. So I'm glad that they decided to change their name in that case. Yeah, it's being spearheaded by Shelby Logan Warren, who is just doing a phenomenal job at pretty much most things on this album. She's the lead vocalist, the lead keyboard player, the lead singer, songwriter, constructionist of the music in this sense, and the overall flavor of the album for me on this end is if that really energetic, very synth heavy power pop, power, almost like arena rock from the 80s was good. You know, because I'm not the biggest fan of like the 80s pop and the 80s rock, and you know, it really depends on the band for me, but it's kind of slim pickings on the 80s style of rock that I will enjoy. So yeah, for me, this is the kind of energetic power pop, power rock, like synth-led rock music that I absolutely love. And I know a lot of people are drawing comparisons to Frost, and I 100% see that and agree with that. If Frost's third record sounded like this, I would say that they had three standout powerhouse albums. You know, this can stand toe-to-toe with Million Town and Experiments in Mass Appeal. In fact, I would go so far as to say that Kyros is making music that I enjoy a lot more than the last two records from Frost. And I'm starting to understand the appeal of the more 80s flair style of synth-led rock, because, I don't know, it just felt like that style didn't have that energy. It didn't have that soul. It didn't have that drive that I really appreciate and love. And this entire album seems to have that. And it starts off a really soft opening just to kind of part the curtains, get us used to Shelby's vocal works and writing styles with a little bit of a guitar that goes right into Showtime, which is a, you know, balls to the wall, energetic flow from beginning to end. You know, it's not too harsh. It's not too crazy. You know, it all flows very well from one section of the song to another section of the song, building on the momentum that came before. And same with The Illusions Inside. And The Illusions Inside has a very infectious and catchy chorus work that makes me want to bump and kind of headbang towards it. It kind of sticks in your head. But it isn't until we get to Esoterica that it's a game changer for me. Esoterica was the moment in the album that I knew I was dealing with something very special and something that I think will land this album on a lot of top 10 lists at the end of 2024. It has that drive, it has that powerhouse, and I love how they're using kind of the bottom of the keyboards on this to really drive home the root of this track. That bottom end, just it's so good. It's so meaty. And I love how, like, for the first half of this track, it really is just to pump up the jam. It's just a build up for the rest of the track. And once we get into the track proper, it's so infectious and energetic and catchy that I cannot help but love it, you know? And I was sitting there thinking, like, man, I think this is what like Genesis was going with Abacab, or what a lot of that kind of like strange styles of the 80s rock was trying to touch, that in my mind just failed miserably. These guys are exceeding with flying colors. And at that point, we go into some of the longer stretches of music with the end in mind, kind of continuing this. It's a little bit darker. It's got a little bit more of a sharp edge to it that I really appreciate. And because they're going into the 7 minutes here, they're really able to explore the space. They're really able to stretch their legs, try different things, have that really harsh punch to it, but never being too aggressive. You know, it might be heavier. It might have that sharper edge, but at no point is it brutal. At no point is it like slapping you over the face with a 2x4. And I think one of the things that I love particularly about this is Shelby's ability to really master the soundscapes that are found on here. You know that she's a master in terms of, shredding up on the keyboards, but really meticulously planning out each sound on the keyboard and seeing how that works to serve the song. That is found extremely well in Digital Fear, where it almost feels like a Tangerine Dream, Jean-Michel Jarre, very electronic rock soundscapes in that sense, just in the terms of orchestration based on sound, and sound being the mood setter, rather than just having the riffs or the flows. It's how we're able to have this very punctuated, progressive soundscape on the keyboards blended with this very airy and very high in the sky soundscapes of the strings that we have on there, all being produced within the synthesizer. And Shelby is once again showcasing her mastery around the soundscapes of a synth. Then we come into the fun, danceable track of Ghosts of You, which, Ghosts of You kind of has this haunted vibe of it, this remembering, this, aspect of longing and whatnot. But really, it's kind of the celebration. It's got this really infectious drive, this dance beat that's reminding me of some of the, house music from the 80s and 90s. It's got this kind of like groove to it that's almost like, 1940s kind of a swing to it as well. So it's also like the blending of all these different genres without losing the mark, without losing focus in that sense. And then we come into a very John Mitchell track, like I'm thinking of Lonely Robot and some of the better cuts from that with Luminal Space, where it has this very airy, very large essence on the synth, but there's this guitar lick that's kind of found throughout that you have to kind of like squint a little bit to see it. But once it brings forth, man, I love it. And that crescendo at the end, that big drive that Shelby is commanding within her vocal works, it provides a very satisfying punch by the end that just makes me want to just give that chef's kiss. It's so very good. And then we come into two longer tracks as the two final tracks on here. Technology Killed the Kids 4, which I think is a suite from, past records. And it's got a little bit of that harsher tone again, a little bit sharper edges. I'm feeling, again, the experiment and mass appeal from Frost in there. It's kind of flirty with the neo-prog aspects and sounds without going too far into the melodrama, but it still has that edge. It still has that sharp aspect to it. And once again, it's got that crescendo, the builds, the payoffs. I really enjoy where this track goes. And then Have Hope being the final track and the longest track on here kind of ends the album off in a very optimistic way. It's very airy. It's got this bounce to it. It's kind of a summarization of everything that came before in a very well packaged suite. So yeah, in the end, Mannequin from Kyros was an absolute blast. And when you get into the actual themes and weeds of this album, it's really, really fascinating. This whole concept of how do we present ourselves into this world where, is the outside so like empty as the inside is? How do we find ourselves within this when we're all being mannequins and we're all being told how to behave and how to act? And I really like how that is blended with this our relationship with technology. And it's not just kind of that very dour, skeptical, nihilistic kind of aspect to it. It has a lot of hope to it. It has a lot of optimism towards it. There's definitely playing with these themes and kind of thinking about it in a much more like optimistic, like, hey, we have control of this, we can do something about it kind of aspect. So I really enjoy that, and it just kind of adds that extra layer for the enjoyment of this. Because for me, I'm music first, themes and overtones second, and I like how there's kind of like a blending of that in this one. So yeah, this one was a great time. I highly recommend it. And in the end, I will say Mannequin by Kyros is one that I absolutely love with my whole heart. This is a banger. This is for me the first real big banger of 2024. I would be shocked if this one didn't make it on the top 10. I had to run out and pick this one up in physical format, so I'm waiting for it to be delivered to me. And this is the one that has sparked my interest, that I'm going to have to find time to go back and listen to the rest of Kyros's past works, because, man, this one was great. Gets the no seal of approval. Go and check this one out. This is definitely a run, don't walk. If you haven't already listened to this one, please do yourself a favor and go and check this one out. This was an absolute blast. So, yeah, that's my thought for Mannequin from Kyros. What did you guys think about this record? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Whatever you thought, please let me know by commenting down below. And that's all I got for you guys today. So thank you all so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.